Hello, I'm very happy to be live here on New York Textile Month. I want to tell about my immense fascination for textile and my research textile as language. Textile is about communication, so if you want to communicate with textiles, it's nice to do some research about how to do that, how to express yourself. I come from a textile family, so I started there with my study at the year 7. My grandmother was a bobbin lace maker and a piano player. My aunt was a weaver, spinner. My mother was always behind the sewing machine, so I think I was watching my family members around me and was curious what they were doing. I think that is what artists do, what most of the people do. They use their eyes and their senses and their curiosity to follow their heart and interest and to create with that. I will take you through my research, and what I hope is that you give me a message or reply on the video or on the social media because I want you to follow the next research that I'm going to do next year. Next year I'm going to Peru, where I will study techniques there, and I will research the work of Annie Albers and how she expressed in textile and structure. So if you're interested there, please follow me and give me a message. I'm here to show a lot of work and inspiration, so that's what I'm going to do. So I hope you like it. My grandmother was a bobbin lace maker, and she was a teacher there. And so she made a whole study program for her students to go along all the different steps how to express yourself in the bobbin lace technique. Bobbin lace technique is like weaving, but then without a loom. You have bobbins, but the patterns are similar in a way, and you can weave around the corner, so that's very special. The first study, I did it when I was 7, and I did, I think, about 10 steps here, and then I stopped, is the linen binding, plain weave. Linen binding is also a binding technique for weaving on a loom. This is netting technique, and this is how it looks if you have one of the pairs that has a colored thread, so you see how the bobbin goes over the field. All these things are little techniques that work with space, how to create open space in the length and in the width. Then techniques slowly become more technical. I think I did the study till this one. This is a kind of, it's called the spin. For me it was interesting, but also I had other interests, so I stopped here. But the book is wonderful to see because it shows many textiles of my grandmother and her study. These are just the small pieces. On the end she made huge refined works. This is the first work that I made from textile when I was young, about 7 years. It's a patchwork I made from little samples of my mother's sewing studio. It took me quite a long to I wanted to be behind her sewing machine, but she said no. But anyway, I collected many beautiful velvets and golden textiles to make this, and I still think it's very funny. Of course, I made a lot of textiles when I was young. My aunt taught me weaving, spinning, many techniques. I went to art school, of course, after it. I had quite a tough time at the art school because it was very conceptual, working from the idea, and I love to work with material, experiment, because I think you need to observe and act when you make a work. So many years after the studies I also did art history. I started my own research on these textiles again. That's about 15 years ago, and it started with a fascination for indigo. I will tell about that later. And also another thing is, of course, an interest for material. What you see here is flax from 1850. It's from a wedding gift, a dowel, and flax. This is flax from my own project where I did grow it myself. These kind of materials and doing the whole process yourself of sewing, weeding, harvesting, spinning with it inspires me a lot. So the expression has a big impact if you can work with the material, if you can change it. And maybe we have time for some spinning later. But yeah, I just wanted to show you this beautiful flax. And of course I also work with wool and other materials, silk. I spin the material, I mix them, I combine colors. So I love to make my own threads. I also dye them with natural dyes. Thread is my main language. The inspiration with thread came very early. The first thing I liked when I was young was doing a lot of finger crochet. I made huge balls with it. And yeah, this is very beautiful. So I call it the philosophie, means thread thinking. Philo comes from the word thread. So my philosophy is the philosophy of the thread. So I will start with weaving techniques after this. This is a small work I made from the flax, with handspun flax. A plain weave is the simplest binding in weaving. And it's just 0, 1, so it's only threads up and down. And in this structure you see both the warp and the weft. So you see here there's a brown mix with white. Weaving is mainly about space, the space between the threads. If the threads are very near to each other, the lines in a weaving work you only see vertically. If on the other hand, you have a lot of space between the threads, you get the stripes on top of each other. Here you see there's lots of space between the threads. You get a kind of tapestry weave, so you can make color blocks like this. This is a very open structure. Those kind of structures I weave on wooden cardboards. I also make big ones, but you can do all your studies on small cardboards. You can do them just by hand and a simple needle and try to express yourself. Let the yarn do the work. And the material, of course. This work is made with the legacy of the yarn of weaver Kitty van der Muyl Dekker. She was the only Dutch Bauhaus weaver, and her yarn of her studio was gifted to me. So I made many works with it, and also big research on her textiles, combined them with music. If you're interested, I can share you the link about the Kitty van der Muyl Dekker Heritage Project. This was about plain weave and space. I told you already that textile is about structure. There are huge books full with different kind of structure, like knitting, weaving, binding, netting. It's tremendous. There are so many different ways to bind thread. Of course, you can also do that by improvising. You don't need to start with difficult techniques. Just act and see what's happened. Many weavers work with notation. Patterns can be noted and repeated. that way, in the easy way. So it's like making a composition, a musical composition. If written down, it can be played again in a new version, but the same musical piece. Before weavers worked with notation. Notation is what you see here. It's how the patterns are noted. They worked with singing. They were singing the patterns. I like to work with patterns, but my main vision is that you should not make anything that a machine can do. So I use more variation and improvisation here, and never design a work on a pattern. I worked with musicians, a soprano and a dancer, and it seems like this kind of patterns can be danced, can be sung. So textile belongs to the family of music, dance and singing. This is of course about language, but also about image. This image is maybe the most important basic image of weaving, 0 and 1. This is the plain weave, up, down, up, down. It's the grid where we work on. It's the binding of the weft and the warp, horizontal, vertical, and what happens there. This is ikat. You can make this pattern in all the techniques, in all many different yarns, like all the important famous textile artists made works on this structure. This is a work of Olga de Amaral. You don't see it very good, but it's also this basic grid pattern. I will tell something more about ikat, because ikat is maybe one of my favorite techniques. I learned them by myself, by just doing, but I studied also at Japanese masters. This is made by my Japanese master. It's maybe the most time-consuming pattern making in the world. The way it's done is you make a drawing, then you place the drawing on a board with camps on the side, and you're going with the threads over the board. You dye with little dots the design on it. Then you take off the yarn, and lengthwise you combine it with yarns, bind it, dye it, unbind it. It's so much work you don't want to know. I'm not going to explain anything, only that it's very inspiring. What you can see by ikat is that there's always, it's unsharp. You see small little, it's unsharp. I think that's really beautiful, because the yarn, the thread, it goes up and down, and it's done by a human, so it's never exactly the same. You can see in a lot of weaving that it's woven by humans. I have this beautiful book about ikat, which is one of the most amazing books I ever saw. All the yarns are naturally dyed and hand woven ikat kimonos. My Japanese master made 3 kimonos each year, all in ikat, 12 meter of textile in 1 kimono. Here is the checkerboard again. And also this kind of image, a sort of opening, a go-through from one side to the other, is exactly what weaving is. It's a thread going to the opening of the warp. In the Netherlands there's a beautiful word for it. It's called the jump. So from 1 to 2 there's a jump in between. It's about transformation itself. Another technique that is very famous worldwide and was the most famous textile art in Europe till the Middle Ages was tapestry weaving or gobelin weaving. this is a book about a huge tapestry, 8 big pieces that can be seen in Museum de Cluny in Paris. It's an extremely beautiful big textile made with natural dyes. It's woven like this, and with the other side to the front. I think it's very beautiful because you still can see that it's quite abstract. And it's not an image, but it's a conception of the world. It's how we humans looked at the world, not as image, but as about maybe a woven world. The world is woven, the way we think is a kind of weaving, and everything the human makes is a kind of woven, copying the structure of our own thinking. After this time, after the 1500, what happened with textile and tapestries? These huge tapestries, about 8 by 4 meter, they hang in castles in Europe from people that were rich. And the paintings at that time were far more smaller. They were on wooden panels, they were heavy and small. After 1500, painting became much more important than textile. The painters used their name to sign their work, and they started to paint on canvases, abstract canvases, hand-woven canvases, as their new medium. The textiles became less important. The weavers were only working for artists who made drawings and not using their own expression enough. So textile went down. It became woven images, and it became decorative, and it disappeared from art history. So in the Renaissance, the images became far more refined, but it was used as decoration to show power, impress people, but it was not. It did lose its beautiful abstraction that is connected to weaving. That's my opinion. This looks more like a painting, and painting and weaving are not the same. So this tapestry weaving is of course done worldwide. And many cultures, they still use the abstract patterns. Patterns that are remembered, they're not made on design. They are remembered and given through generations. So these kind of tapestries, Anatolian kalim, they are never perfect because they are not made based on a design, but on memory. And I think that is very beautiful because they express the memory of their maker. All these kalims are made with natural dyes. And here again you see this image with the opening, the yarn that goes to the other side. An image of transformation. You can see it worldwide. You can see this image, variations of this, done by all cultures till about this century, but not anymore in Europe. In Europe we went for decoration, fashions, and not for textile art. So Europe was the first area where textile as art form disappeared. That's of course a shame. So all the other cultures who were still making this kind of textile, they expressed their art in textile. So they were not primitive. In my vision, the European were completely primitive by not giving textile its proper value, like the first and most important art of the world. Of course, I also love painting, and there's a lot of they inspire each other. I mean, the painters, they love the beautiful textiles in the Middle Ages. painted them very precise, so there is a lot of inspiration. But for textile as art form, very sorry for that. I did some research myself to try Gobelin weaving. This is a study piece of me. This is the Western way it was made. There's a carton. It should be like this. That carton is placed behind the weaving work. You weave it with this side on top. And while weaving, you create the image. The beauty of this is, of course, that it gives beautiful color blocks. You can. It's different than linen binding, because there you have always the two colors, so never one bright color. Linen binding is perfect for stripes and for checkers, but this is beautiful for color blocks. This is a book about Peruvian weaving. It's one of the oldest textile cultures, and it is maybe the most impressive textile culture I know. It looks like lace. How did people make it? These are cats. There are many cats. Here you also see the checkerboard pattern again. So many patterns are about waves, netting, checkerboard, hooks, cats, mouse. I mean, they made everything from textile. That was their main communication form. They didn't have text. They communicated even the administration with handmade textile. So their whole world was a woven, hand-woven textile world. This is one of the craziest beautiful images I know. I once transferred this textile into the computer to a musical composition. Of course, computer and textile are connected. We are working with coordinates. The computer evolved out of the jacquard machine. What you see is that the technique becomes more and more complicated, and that you cannot see the technique under the dashboard anymore. Like on your phone, there is a world behind that is about these coordination threads. And it's working for you. You push a button and something happens. But here on the textile, it's me creating. So that is what I teach young people when I learn them textile technique on little cardboards. I went to Mexico just as Annie Albers and Sheila Hicks to learn techniques there, to learn to weave on the backstrap loom. And before that, these techniques are all written out in this book, so you can try to find out how something like that works. So I did sit many hours of studying. Let me see if I can find the study piece I'm looking. No. Well, this is one of the textiles I made in a combination of studying techniques from this book. What you see here, that was a square in a square with the opposite of pattern. That is a kind of damask weaving. Twill variation, you can see what the difference you can make by hand. But this cannot be done on a loom because you cannot have the differentiation. And all this just made on little cardboard. These studies, I made many of these studies. Most of them I gave away, but the most important study pieces I kept. Another piece that I made in Mexico, I wanted to learn weaving on a backstrap loom. That is just some small sticks that you attach to your body and to a tree or a pole. and other cultures can create the most amazing textile with this extremely simple loom. What you see here is a brocade weaving. It looks like embroidery, but it's just you have the ongoing plain weave thread, and on top of it threads go create their own pattern on top of that. So it was very nice to study there. I did woof outside in the nature with this loom. You can take it everywhere. So to be honest, it's one of my most favorite looms. Another work I made on a backstrap loom is this one. It's very simple, of course, but to be in nature and weave with material from nature, that is crazy. That is very much inspiring. So these techniques of the South American cultures is very old. I found a very simple piece made on a wooden structure, and it has many layers on it. Like normally you have one warp, but if you want to work with different colors in the warp, you do layer on layer of color. That is how the current jacquard machines work. But they did it by hand. They had 7 layers of warp, and with the needle made images with taking the color of the different warps. It's crazy. I understand completely that the Bauhaus weavers were inspired of it. I made many works after Sheila Hicks and Annie Albers. This is a very simple double weave. The weavers from the Bauhaus were the first after hundreds and hundreds of years of the missing of textile art. Textile art disappeared after the Middle Ages, as I told, or it became less visible in Europe. And the Bauhaus weavers started from scratch in the studio with about nothing. So they invented everything by themselves from nothing. And that, I think, is the most important lesson. If you want to innovate, you have to break down and go to a bare minimal constructions and build from that. So I have many textiles, and so my next study will about what kind of techniques those artists were using and how they can still be used to make human expression in textile work. Of course, color is also very important in the creation and expression of yourself in textiles. I'm a specialist in natural dye, and here you have some very little swatches. I learned indigo dyeing from scientist Michael Garcia. I had many other teachers there. It's science, but it's also magic. It's totally magic to create your own colors. These greens you cannot create with natural dyes. These greens are created with combinations of blue and yellow. I think those are the most amazing. Sometimes you see the yellow and the blue mixing for your eyes. So these colors and dye were main inspiration for me. And one of the ways of working it is with shibori. This is a silk shibori. I think on the end of this movie I will show you the whole piece. How it's made, it's folded and dyed several times. That's how it creates its beautiful shades. Natural dye, you can just start with natural dye, and it's always beautiful to create your own colors, but colors that stay for hundreds of years called grand tint. So there are only few that are grand tint. In the image, this is a crazy book. Here you can see the chemical structures, and it has hundreds of years of knowledge of many cultures. It's a book by Dominique Cardon. I can talk for hours about resist techniques. Resist techniques are working together with indigo. About indigo I can talk for hours. I will not do that. But from the technique of the indigo, many techniques work with that. You cannot dye paint with indigo because if there's coming oxygen, it will not work anymore. So you need to dye underwater, and everything that needs to be white, all the lines you have to bind, clamp, stitch to become visible. So it's just like ICA textile, it's a resist technique. But this is just a short introduction, so I stop here and I will just tell you about the latest technique, and that is it was very famous in the Netherlands. It is white damask. I did it as last study in my study textile as language, after visiting all these cultures and techniques and finding out how they express themselves in it. This of course is connected to my own culture. It's a white on white technique, and this is it's also used for dowels. So it's a combination with linen, with the sun, with nature. It's very special. It's not only from the Netherlands, it's the whole north of Europe who made this kind of textiles. I will pick up a sample that is a bit more simpler. This is palette damask. These simple block patterns were used for textiles for simpler people. So the riches had these extremely decorated pieces, but I love this simple block pattern. So it's and you can use this technique on looms, but you can also do it by hand. So here I try to make a little fade out by hand. It's beautiful because you can see the patterns only in the light. This was a introduction to many techniques. Of course not all techniques, but these techniques are ways for an artist to express himself.